Here we go.
Morning everyone. Today I am going to talk about salivary secretion. So as you all know, there are three pairs of major salivary glands. They are parotid gland, submandibular gland or submaxillary gland, and sublingual glands. Apart from this, minor salivary glands are also there, like buccal glands, palatine glands, labia glands. We are not going to talk about them. So now coming to these glands, where they are located, through which duct they open into the mouth, and what is the size of those glands, what is the innervation, and how much do they contribute to our daily salivary secretion. Let us see. So these are the three major salivary glands: parotid, submandibular, and sublingual. Coming to each of these glands, parotid gland, it weighs about 20 to 30 grams each. So they're all in pairs, remember. It weighs about 20 to 30 grams each. It is located in front of the ears, and its secretion comes into the mouth via Stenson's duct, which opens opposite the upper second molar tooth in the mouth. Upper is missing there, upper second molar tooth in the mouth. And it contains purely serous cells. And its contribution to our salivary secretion is 25%. Supposing our daily salivary secretion is 1500 ml, 25% of it comes from this parotid glands, and it is innervated by 9th nerve, and that is the biggest of the glands, parotid gland. Next, coming to submandibular gland or submaxillary gland, they are 8 to 10 grams each, and it is located medial to the mandible in the submaxillary triangle, and it opens via the Wharton's duct into the floor of the mouth on the side of your frenulum linguae. And it's a mixed gland. It contains, that means it contains both serous and mucus cells in the ratio of 4:1. And it contributes 70% to our salivary secretion. Lot of people think because parotid is bigger, it contributes more. No, but submandibular gland contributes more to our salivary secretion. And it is innervated by 7th nerve. Coming to the last gland, that is the sublingual gland. It is the smallest of the glands, and it weighs about 2 to 3 grams each, and it is present below the mucosa of the floor of the mouth. And its secretions are discharged by small 5 to 15 small ducts. They are called rivinous ducts, and they open into the sublingual part of the mouth. It is also a mixed gland, but here the mucus cells are more compared to the serous cells. So serous to mucus ratio is 1:4. The first one is purely serous, the second one is mixed, third one is mixed, but in second one you get lot of serous cells, but in the third one there are lot of mucus cells. Okay, and it contributes about 5% to our salivary secretion. It is also innervated by 7th nerve. The structure of the salivary glands is called racemose structure. Racemose means it is like bunch of grapes. Bunch of grapes. So it has got the asinus and the duct. Asinus is the secretory unit of the salivary glands. This asinus open via the intercalated ducts into the intralobular duct, and this intralobular duct open into the interlobar duct, and all the interlobar duct open into the main duct, like your bunch of grapes. So this asinus have got the serous cells and the mucus cells. So glands present as the same thing what I told you. They present as racemose structure. It consists of acini and the duct system. Asinus is the secretory unit of the salivary gland. So the ducts join to form intralobular duct, and then the interlobar duct, and which leads into the main duct. Salivary glands contain chiefly two types of cells: mucus cells and the serous cells. So looking at the diagram, the upper one is the serous acinus and the lower one is the mucus acinus. How are they different from each other? Let us see. Mucus cells contain mucinogen granules and they secrete thick viscous mucin, which is very useful for the lubrication for food and protecting the oral mucosa. So mucous cells have got mucinogen granules and they secrete viscous mucin, which is useful for the lubrication of food and protecting the oral mucosa. Serous cells contain zymogen granules and they secrete ptyalin or your salivary amylase, which is thin and watery, and it initiates the digestion of starch to maltose. So function of ptyalin is it will convert starch to maltose. So these are the two types of cells, and I have told you which gland contains in what ratio what types of cells. So they secrete either the watery saliva or thick viscous saliva. So coming to the nerve supply to salivary glands, nerve supply to salivary glands is both by sympathetic and by parasympathetic. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. As you all know, sympathetic is thoracolumbar outflow. So this arises from the lateral horn cells of T1 and T2 segments of spinal cord, and they enter the paravertebral sympathetic chain and they synapse with the cells in the superior cervical ganglion. So these are preganglionic fibers. You should, for sympathetic and parasympathetic, whenever we talk, they have always got preganglionic fibers and the postganglionic fibers. So the preganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nerve, they start from T1 and T2 and end in the superior cervical ganglion. Postganglionic fibers, they run along the blood vessels and supply to the three pairs of salivary glands. So here the blood vessels are carotid artery. So along with their blood supply, they supply to three pairs of salivary glands along with their blood supply. Whenever sympathetic nerves are stimulated, vasoconstriction occurs in the salivary glands and they secrete small amount of thick viscid saliva. So this thick, because it is thick, it is rich in mucus and other organic constituents. So like protein, it is rich in mucus and other proteins. That is why it is thick. So when sympathetic glands are stimulated, sympathetic stimulation is there, you get thick saliva. This is about your sympathetic nerve fibers. So let me show you the diagram. So T1 and T2, this is your spinal cord. So from T1 and T2 of the spinal cord, it is going via your ventral horn and going towards your paravertebral chain. So it is parallel to your spinal cord. That's why it's called paravertebral chain. And here these fibers are entering into your superior cervical ganglion. So here they are synapsing with superior cervical ganglion, and the postganglionic fibers are starting from the superior cervical ganglion and running along your carotid artery and supplying all the three glands. Here it is only showing in this diagram only the parotid gland, but it is supplying all the three glands. So this is your sympathetic nerve supply. Coming to parasympathetic nerve fibers, these are craniosacral outflow. So they arise from the salivary nucleus. Where is the salivary nucleus present? Salivary nucleus is present at the junction of medulla and pons near your tractus solitarius. So the innervation to parotid and submandibular and sublingual is slightly different. To parotid glands, it originates from the cells in inferior salivary nucleus and the glossopharyngeal nerve will supply to the parotid glands. Whereas to submandibular and sublingual glands, it originates from the superior salivary nucleus. Nucleus has got, the salivary nucleus is superior and inferior. Inferior one will supply the parotid gland. Superior salivary nucleus, it passes through the facial nerve and chorda tympani nerve and supply your submandibular and sublingual glands. So whenever parasympathetic stimulation, it causes vasodilatation of the blood vessels of salivary glands to secrete large amount of watery fluid. So when parasympathetic is stimulated, because of vasodilatation, you get large amount of watery fluid that is high in electrolytes but low in proteins. So coming to the diagram, here you can see both superior salivary nucleus and inferior salivary nucleus. Inferior salivary nucleus, from inferior salivary nucleus, the fibers are running via the glossopharyngeal nerve, and these are the preganglionic fibers. They are ending in the aortic ganglion, and postganglionic fibers are starting from the aortic ganglion and it is supplying the parotid gland. The one in green is your parotid gland. Then for submandibular and sublingual glands, the nucleus is superior salivary nucleus, and these fibers are via the facial nerve, and facial nerve branches out to cauda tympani nerve, and these preganglionic fibers are ending at the submandibular ganglion, and the postganglionic fibers are starting from the submandibular ganglion and they are innervating your sublingual gland and the submandibular gland. The one in red. The one in red is for your submandibular and sublingual glands. The one in green is for your parotid gland. This is the innervation of salivary glands. We have seen the sympathetic innervation. We have seen the parasympathetic innervation of salivary glands. Now, coming to the composition of saliva. Saliva composition, it is made up of water. Water is about 99.5% and the solids are about 0.5%. So, solids are further divided into inorganic and organic. Inorganic is further divided into cations and the anions. The cations are sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, lead and mercury. Inorganic are anions like chloride, bicarbonates, phosphates and thiocyanates. Coming to the organic. Organic are thiolin. Thiolin is nothing but your salivary alpha amylase, which helps in the digestion of starch to maltose. Then there is mucin. It is a glycoprotein. Lingual lipase. It is a lipolytic enzyme. Lysozymes. They are bactericidal. Kallikrein. It is a proteolytic enzyme. IgA. It is defense against your viruses and bacteria. Then you have blood group antigens and you also have got nerve growth factor. So this is the composition of saliva. Saliva is mainly made up of water 99.5% and the solids. Solids are inorganic and organic. Inorganic is further divided into cations and anions, and the organic we have got the following like thiolin, mucin, lingual lipase, lysozymes, kallikrein, IgA, blood group antigens and the nerve growth factors. About the composition of saliva. So how much is the salivary secretion in a day? Salivary secretion is 1 to 1.5 liters in 24 hours at a rate of 1 ml per minute. Saliva is produced at a rate of 1 ml per minute. So rate of secretion is maximum when we are eating food and minimum when we are sleeping. Now coming to the functions of saliva. So first, it has got 7 functions. The first and foremost function is preparation of food for swallowing. Now whenever we have put the food in the mouth, the food is lubricated and becomes moistured due to saliva, and that helps us in mastication. When after mastication the food is rolled out into a bolus, and that will facilitate our swallowing. So first and foremost important thing is preparation of food for swallowing. Okay. Next important function is solvent. If you have to appreciate the taste of the food, the food has to be dissolved first. So saliva helps us, saliva acts as a solvent and our food is dissolved in the saliva, and this will stimulate the taste buds, and these taste buds so that our food what we eat is appreciated. We'll appreciate the taste after the taste buds are stimulated. Third function is cleansing action. Our mouth is full of pathogenic bacteria which can cause dental caries and damage to the tissue. So saliva helps us in cleaning our mouth because it has got lysozymes which are bactericidal. So it helps us to maintain the mouth clean, and also it washes away your desquamated epithelial cells or food residue in the mouth is also cleansed because of this saliva. And the other function is digestion. So for this, salivary amylase is very important. Salivary amylase acts on the starch, boiled starch, then it will convert it into maltose. So this action starts in the mouth itself, but because the food stays in the mouth for a shorter duration, this action will continue even in the stomach. It acts best at the pH of 6, but this action gets arrested when there is increased acidic gastric contents. When acidity is becoming around 4, it becomes inactivated. So it can stay in the stomach for half an hour and its action is ceased when the acidity of the gastric contents is increased to 4. So this helps in digestion. The next function is excretion. Saliva excretes certain drugs and certain chemicals like your alcohol, morphine, lead, thiocyanate, mercury are all excreted through saliva. That is another function. Another function is water balance. So whenever our body has lost water, when the water content in our body has decreased, salivary secretion decreases. So when salivary secretion decreases, our mouth becomes dry, and then our thirst centers get stimulated. We will drink water, and this, when we drink water, again your salivary secretion increases. So it maintains the water balance. And other important function is it has got role in speech. So saliva, because of its lubrication and mastication functions, it will moisten the soft parts of the mouth like your tongue, lips. So this will aid in speech. When the mouth is dry, your pronunciation and articulation becomes difficult. So what are the functions of saliva? It helps in the preparation of food for swallowing. It acts as a solvent. It has got cleansing action. It has got digestion action. It can excrete certain substances. It has got action on water balance, and it has also got a role in speech. So these are the important functions of saliva. Next. So mechanism of salivary secretion. So mechanism of salivary secretion is important in examination point of view, and also the functions of saliva. Here mechanism is a two-stage operation. First stage involves the asanas and the second stage involves the salivary ducts. In the first stage, because primary secretion, asanas is a secretory unit, so it will secrete the primary secretion because of the styolin, mucin and all the electrolytes. So the primary composition of saliva is just like that of your ECF in the asanas, because primary secretion is isotonic. It is same that as your plasma. So it's exactly like your ECF. But when this primary secretion moves on to the ducts, two active transport mechanisms will occur. What are they? And these two transport active mechanisms will change the composition of saliva. Saliva which was isotonic will become hypotonic. How? Here in the ducts, sodium is actively reabsorbed. Two active transports are there, I told you. So first is sodium. First active transport is sodium is actively reabsorbed, and in place of it, potassium is actively secreted into the salivary ducts. So when the sodium is actively reabsorbed and potassium is actively secreted, it will change the electrical negativity. This electrical negativity causes the chloride ions to move, to be reabsorbed passively. So chloride ions are reabsorbed passively. So the ducts will have less of sodium and chloride and more of potassium. So this is your first active transport. What is the second active transport? Second active transport is bicarbonates are actively secreted. Actively secreted, that from the ductal epithelium into the lumen of the ducts. So what should be the composition? Because now sodium and chloride have gone out, they are not there in the ducts, the solution has become hypotonic. Initially it was isotonic in the primary, it was isotonic, the primary secretion was isotonic. Now because when that secretion is moving into the ducts, because of these two active transport processes, the secretion has become hypotonic in the ducts, because sodium and chloride are reabsorbed and potassium and bicarbonate are secreted. So when is this happening? When we are resting, when we are not eating food, these things are happening. So so eventually what is the composition? How does it look like? During resting conditions, sodium and chloride ions in saliva is about 1/7 to 1/10 their concentration in plasma, because sodium and chloride have got reabsorbed. So in the saliva their content is about 1/7 to 1/10 their concentration in plasma. And potassium ions, because they are actively secreted, it becomes 7 times that of plasma. And bicarbonate is also actively secreted, it becomes 2 to 3 times that of plasma. So during resting conditions, the solution which was isotonic has become hypotonic. That is why sodium and chloride concentration comparatively to plasma has reduced. So this is happening during your resting conditions. But whenever you are eating food, the primary secretion in the acini increases about 20 folds. Lot of saliva is coming out of your acini, and the ducts are not able to recondition. The ducts are not able to recondition to their salivary secretion, because the ductal reconditioning is considerably reduced. So because so much of saliva is coming out, ducts are not able to cope with it. So what will happen again? The sodium and chloride concentration rises to half or 2/3 of the plasma, and potassium concentration rises to 4 times that of plasma, and bicarbonate concentration exceeds that of plasma. This is happening whenever we are eating food, because the primary secretion by acini is increased by 20 times. There is so much of saliva is coming out of this acinus, and the ducts are not able to recondition what it was doing earlier. When we are not eating, it is not able to do it now. So the sodium and chloride concentration rises that much, and potassium concentration rises 4 times, and bicarbonate concentration also exceeds that of plasma. So this is the mechanism of your salivary secretion. You should know whenever during resting conditions and during maximum salivation. Control of salivation. I told you, because of parasympathetic and sympathetic, the glands are innervated by parasympathetic and sympathetic. So what will happen when parasympathetic, it is stimulated by parasympathetic, there will be increased secretion of large volume of watery saliva that is high in electrolytes, with a relatively low content of organic material and protein. That is why it is watery. There is not much of protein in it. So with that protein is volume is rich in electrolytes. So that is parasympathetic. Parasympathetic fibers activate the acinar cells and cause vasodilatation of blood vessels of the salivary glands. Parasympathetic function is vasodilatation. What are the neurotransmitters there? Neurotransmitters are ACH, that is acetylcholine. So as you all know, parasympathetic is cholinergic innervation. So the neurotransmitter acetylcholine should be there to bring about this vasodilatation. Apart from there, what is causing this vasodilatation is kallikrein. In the composition of saliva, I told you it has got kallikrein. This kallikrein will act on the alpha 2 globulins in the plasma. Kallikrein acts on the alpha 2 globulins in the plasma and convert into bradykinin. As you all know, bradykinin is also a vasodilator. So then VIP, a vasoactive intestinal polypeptide, is also there. So all these three neurotransmitters bring about vasodilatation of blood vessels. So you get copious amount of saliva, which is rich in electrolytes but poor in protein. So because of the neurotransmitter ACH, kallikrein and VIP. Kallikrein, I told you, it acts on the alpha 2 globulin in plasma and converts into bradykinin. Okay. Here we have seen about the parasympathetic. Now about the stimulation, sympathetic. Whenever sympathetic nerves are stimulated, it causes less secretion of saliva. That is why, because it is less, it is very thick and rich in mucus. So what is the vasodilator? Sympathetic fibers activate the Asanas cells and it will bring about the vasoconstriction by secreting the noradrenaline. So parasympathetic is vasodilatation and sympathetic is vasoconstriction. That is why you get less amount of saliva. So that saliva is thick and rich in mucus because the neurotransmitter here is noradrenaline. Here we should know about two reflexes. One is the inborn reflex. It's unconditioned reflex. Inborn, as the name suggests, it is there from birth. That is why it's called inborn reflex. So inborn reflex. So as soon as a baby is born, any substance, if you are put in the mouth, it will stimulate the nerve endings in the mucous membrane of oral cavity and it will bring about the salivary secretion. And this reflex is inborn. So it is there from your birth, and for both palatable and unpalatable substances also will cause salivary secretion. So quality of the substance is not important. Quality of the substance is immaterial and does not need previous experience. So this is inborn reflex. Inborn means from the time you are born, this reflex is there with you. You need not have previous experience to that substance. So whatever is put in the mouth, it will stimulate the nerve endings in the mucous membrane and bring about your salivary secretion. So even the palatable substances or unpalatable substances also bring about the salivary secretion. This is inborn. The conditioned reflex is acquired reflex. So salivary secretion occurs by sight, smell or thought of food. You are walking on the road and you have seen some jalebi. What will happen? Your mouth will start salivation. So salivary secretion, it causes by sight, smell or thinking about the food or discussion about the food, or when you are chewing something, salivary secretion increases. So why does this happen? Because the receptors present in eyes, nose, that is the receptors of the special senses, they make a neuronal circuit with the cerebral cortex and with the salivary centers. Salivary centers means your superior salivary nucleus and inferior salivary nucleus, and all this, it makes a neuronal circuit. This circuit brings about a salivary secretion, looking at the food, thinking about the food or smelling the food. Then it is an acquired reflex. It is not an inborn reflex, it is an acquired reflex, and we need previous experience for it. Because you have tasted jalebi earlier, you know it tastes yummy. That is why you get this salivary secretion. So it's an acquired reflex and it needs your previous experience. So inborn reflex we have seen and the conditioned reflex we have seen. Now the next one is dry food, sour taste food caused by acids and presence of smooth objects in the mouth like pebble causes marked salivation compared to moist food and rough objects. because those are the powerful stimulus for your mouth receptors. Such as if you put some tamarind in your mouth, it will increase the salivary secretion. Dry food, particularly if you powdered the food, food which has been powdered thoroughly, if you put in the mouth, it will increase the salivary secretion, because these are the powerful stimulants for your mouth receptors. So dry food and sauteed food and smooth objects like pebbles. Comparatively, salivation increases than to moist foods and rough objects. Applied aspects. So applied aspects are hyposalivation. Hyposalivation, the word hyposalivation, you can also call it etylism or xerostomia. Hyposalivation, the other word for hyposalivation is etylism or xerostomia. It's decreased in the salivary secretion. Hypo, decrease salivary secretion. Other words are etylism or xerostomia. So this decreased suppression of salivary secretion, you can see in temporary, could be temporary or permanent. Temporary ones, anxiety, when you are very anxious, your mouth becomes dry. Fear, whenever you are scared. During fever, or when there is dehydration. Dehydration, like you have got diarrhea, vomiting. So in those cases, your mouth will start drying up. That is the temporary. Permanent ones are when there is duct obstruction. Supposing there is some stone in the duct, salivary ducts. So that will not bring about the salivary secretion. So these are permanent ones, are the duct obstruction, congenital absence of salivary glands. In some people, some pairs of salivary glands are missing. So that will lead to hyposalivation. And irradiation therapy, whenever there is a carcinoma of your head and neck region, you give some radiation therapy. Whenever radiation therapy is given, your salivary glands are also affected and they decrease the salivary secretion. So when do you see hypersalivation? The other word for hypersalivation is sialorrhea, that is increased in the salivary secretion during pregnancy. One of the causes is pregnancy. Whenever there is neoplasm, whenever there is a tumor of salivary glands. In Parkinsonism, because the basal ganglia neurons are stimulated by ACH. That is why you get hypersalivation in Parkinsonism. Schizophrenia. So some antipsychotic drugs causes hypersalivation. That's it from me. Hope you understood the class. So examination point of view, here the important thing is you should know the functions of saliva and the mechanism of salivary secretion.